Okay, great.
Sonia?
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, we will start admitting people. Great.
Super. So we give them like a few minutes to adjust and then we can start it, okay?
Great.
Wonderful. We kindly ask you guys in the audience to turn off your microphone, so we will be sure that there will be no technical problem and issue. So please, as soon as you are in, turn off your microphone. And of course, video if you do have problem with the connection. Let me see. Okay. I think we can start. Okay. We would have time to go back and forth. So welcome everybody. Welcome for coming to this event where we're going to launch the FORK, Food Design for Opportunities, Research and Knowledge, which is a no-profit organization dedicated to redesign our food system. We are happy to have the opportunity to present FORK during the Off Barcelona Design Week 2021. I'm Sonia Massari, I'm one of the founders, and later on I will have the opportunity to introduce also the other founders of FORK. And on behalf of them, I'm happy to say that we are super happy to launch these initiatives after month and month of working in our through our computers and sitting in front of a screen. Maybe you know very well this kind of feeling to design something new, which is actually FORK. This dialogue wants to be an informal conversation, more than an official opening ceremony, because we decided to invite friends, colleagues, experts to talk with us about the potentiality of design methods in the agri-food business. So we are here in a festival of design, and we think it's important to underline on what it is design and how we consider design. Let me first of all turn off here, because otherwise I will have also problem with the audio. And here is the issue. So design is not just a technical disciplines, but instead it's a way of being connected with the real world. So we really believe that design summarize and also help us to understand what is our actual society, our actual complexities, and of course our rituals nowadays. And in a way, design also anticipate, or at least try to anticipate, the new behaviors, the new culture. So this is very strong in the food sector. And this is why we believe many institutions, many organizations are now keeping on their talks, on their, I would say, priorities, the topic of food and the topic of reshaping the food systems. So we will have the opportunity to go through many important messages that we are currently receiving from, for example, the Green Deal strategies. And the name of the Green Deal strategies, the European one, is Farm to Fork. So, and I really like their claim, which is, do you have the appetite for change? So primarily the European Green Deal aimed to make food system fair, healthy, and environmentally friendly. But first of all, wants to create systems that are sustainable. Otherwise, it will be quite difficult to also afford and face the crisis like the COVID-19 we faced in the past 2 years. So putting the food system on a sustainable path is really important. It's really a new opportunities. And we believe this is why it became so important, also connected with other aims and goals that the Green Deals from the European context does have. For example, the opportunity, and I would like to say the potentiality of using creative and creativity, so creative industry, creativity, arts, culture, education, to operate to get a better, greener, and more sustainable world. So definitely this has to be... Sorry?
Estoy nerviosa.
There is a microphone open. I don't know why my audio was actually eliminated. It seems that I was not saying something correct. So the dialogue started already. So let's go back a little bit on the topic of today, which is actually the role of creativity. As I mentioned, the Green Deal also brings creativities and creativity in the industry. And then we have also the new European Bauhaus movement that really underline the importances of working together for a sustainable and an inclusive future. And some of the key words of the new European Bauhaus movement are experimentation, connection, science, technology, art and culture, and opportunities instead of problems. And finally, I think one of the interesting manifestos that are nowadays being inspired and empowered by the SDGs, so the Sustainable Development Goals launched by the UN, it's also the Food Manifesto managed by the Chef Manifesto, which really bring together chefs from all around the world to shape solution, to find solution, to face the problem about hunger, but also for achieving food security, improving nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture by 2030. So here we are. This is the scenario in which we decided to include fork. And here we are today to talk and to ask to our guests, but also to you, are we ready for this age of change? Where and how we need to start together to design something that maybe is agency-based, so based on the opportunity of changing. And why do we need something like fork for changing the system? And of course, for getting through the food and getting a new food system, able to get a more sustainable actually world. So this will be our conversation today. This will be in a way the starting point of our conversation, and I'm happy to introduce and getting on the virtual stage now. I invite on the virtual stage Rebecca de Sancho Mayoral. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. She is the manager at the Research and Innovation Investments at European Innovation Council. So I leave the stage to you for your greetings.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you to everyone, and good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I would like to start by saying how happy I am and excited to be part of this presenting fork and redesigning food systems and human diets. I would like to say a little bit more about myself. As you said, I arrived to Brussels 14 years ago, and in my personal life, I've been passionate advocating and contributing to non-for-profits, in particularly in the area of gender and women. And that led me to help raising awareness and having more women entrepreneurs and pushing for more women innovators and in tech. But let's talk about a fork. I'm happy to see that the project idea of fork finally is kicking off and going live after I met one of the founders, Pedro Alvarez, with the project idea, and we crossed paths in the European Innovation Council selection of food tech companies. I've been always very excited to see how many ideas and overarching passionate ideas can give birth finally. So yeah, it's really exciting to see the energy of so many change makers and contribute to this idea here today. On how I crossed this paths conversation with Pedro was very funny, because we started talking about food, health, and my interest on human diets and the impact on health around food at the time. And that's a little bit on the personal side, but so I have as you well mentioned, to touch a little bit on that, and also present the European Innovation Council as another change maker contributing to scaling up European innovations. So in my current position on the EIC fund, but also on the research and innovation investments, the objective is to enhance investments for European innovations. And how do we do it? On the one side, there is the European Innovation Council, and we want to fund the brightest innovations to get the most ambitious ideas of the EU, and in a place that is one-stop shop for innovators. by providing agile funding and building ecosystems. And this is part where you come also as well like an ecosystem. The EIC's mission is to accelerate breakthrough innovation. And in Europe, as you know, we have many game-changing and breakthrough ideas, but often these companies do not have the same opportunities provided by the venture capital market in US and China. So we built the European Innovation Council Fund last year, and it is the investment arm of the European Innovation Council, and it provides equity and grant funding together to the companies that have been pre-selected. The fund will fill this gap through a scheme that does not crowd out private investors, but on the contrary, crowds in co-investments and brings follow-up investments on those companies that have been supported by the European Innovation Council. What else can I say on that? This is the first time that the European Commission is making such direct equity investment in companies, and it's aiming, of course, to fill a critical financing gap in the technology transfer market. As we know, again, very few projects reach the commercialization stage, and there is this, what it's called the valley of death phenomenon, where the projects get stuck and they don't go to the market. So it wants to be impact driven, and that's where I would like to focus. So it should be also recognizable for supporting equality, gender balance, and contributing to the topic that we were mentioning, sustainability, with a specific focus on health, resilience, and the green and digital transitions. So I'm hopeful that will play an important role to close all those gaps, and others will follow. And just a little bit on the research and innovation investments actions. I was checking before this intervention today, and well, we have on the European Investment Bank's advisory services, there is one study highlights the sector's need for more and better tailored finance and increased innovation. So we have all these challenges ahead, as well as continuing to respect the Sustainable Development Goals, and that it goes perfectly in line, as you were saying before, with the Green Deal. And this report provides a clear argument for more EU support in mobilizing finance and for innovative companies in the European agri-food sector. And another element, one of the actions that had started is called EU Mission, and one of them it's soil, health, and food. And I wanted to highlight and stop on this one. There are several others, like fighting against cancer, also adapting to climate change, protecting oceans, or living in greener cities. But ensuring soil, health, and food, it's the one that is appropriate for FORC. And it's part of the Horizon Europe Framework Program. There was a preparatory phase last year, November, and there will be actions and the strategy to put ahead on this soil, health, and food mission, and will provide a powerful tool to raise awareness on the importance of soils, to engage with citizens, as you're doing, to create knowledge and develop solutions for restoring soil health and soil functions. And this will allow full use of the potential of soil to mitigate the effects of climate change. So the results will have a direct impact on the success of the European Green Deal, and it's ambitious to progress on climate, biodiversity, and sustainable food. And with that, I would like to close my intervention by wishing you all the best to develop your ideas, to grow in your results. And I'm sure and certain that you will have a great impact in the future redesign of the food sector. So congratulations. I have here a bottle too, but I don't want to to break it like the boat. So just leave it to the end of the event. Congratulations, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you so much on the behalf of all the founders, but also all the people that will be with us because this is actually, I believe it's something that we want to underline since the beginning. The idea from the five of us of doing fork, it's based on the fact that we realized that there was a gap and we want to cover the gap. So there were some opportunities and there was food design, people, food design, I would say groups, food design courses, food design, research center, or better, people who want to provide their own work to make those all together and connect all of the dots to actually create the innovation you underline it. So we want to do, and we want to provide concreteness to the word of equality, to the word of gender balance, to the word of resilience, to the word of sustainability, to the word of fair food. And we believe design can get really an important role on this. So let's actually go through the rest of the meeting. And first of all, let me introduce who are our guests today. And of course, let me introduce also the other founders. I think we got the list now that we can share it. It's not a surprise because all of you saw this in the meeting summary. I wonder, perfect. So this will be our logo, and some of you can see also the logo on the back of some of the founders, not on mine, because unfortunately I did have some technological problems, so you got only the black. And in this round table, we will involve, as I told you before, friends, colleagues, experts in the field. So we are happy to have with us today Mariah Vogelsang, Christina Bauerman, Fabio Parasecoli, Albert Fuster, Chad Titus, Clara Bartran, Rebecca De Sancho, who was actually speaking right now. And of course, we are happy also to have here the founders of this idea, my friends, and I would like to say friends of adventure, because when we decided to do this, we didn't know yet where we wanted to arrive, but step by step, we understood the importances of creating this building ecosystem that Rebecca was mentioned before. And what does it mean to become change maker? Means doing something. So Pedro Alvarez, Antonio Barrera, Ricardo Bonaccio, Mariana Heidler, and myself are happy to be here and to discuss with our guests about many of the topic. And practically, we will cover the 4 pillars of for intervention and 4 goals. So we will touch the education side, we will touch the gastronomy, we will touch the food industry and the agri-food businesses, and we will go through the creativity and the food design purposes. So for some of you who actually will be interesting to be part of this adventure, we want to give you also some information how to enjoy fork. Let me see if we can get through the other slides here. Sorry, I'm not managing this slide, but I hope you can see it. No? Okay, so I can actually, founders, friends, give me a feedback because I don't see you anymore.
It's not working. Can you share it again? Maybe you can share it again, Sonia.
I'm not the one sharing, so let's ask Mariana, who is working on the backstage. But I can actually introduce what it will be in the next slide. So we liked the fact that we didn't put like only our email, but this is something we really want to give as a soul of the fork, which is how to enjoy and how to enjoy fork. So you can be and stay informed about us by literally going and checking in our social media, or you can become a member and this is the website, and soon there will be all the information there. You can collaborate with us, and our purpose will be really to connect the dots and try also to connect you and us to the funds that we mentioned before with the first speech. And of course, tell us if you do have any ideas you want to share with us, good practices. We're really open to listen to you and to be part with you of this new adventure. And for the ones of you, the baby will not stay till the end, because we will go more in depth in this in the second part of the meeting of today. Those are the next steps that Fork is going to achieve. So we will actually be present at the Food Design Festival in July, and we will launch the Food Design Day in the next October. We will launch also the Fork Food Design Award. We will launch it in October, then we will have the winner in May 2022, and we will actually be part and we will organize the e-food conference in May 22, which will be a more scientific and academic conference connected with schools, with students, but also with practitioners. So again, we will go back to this later. This is actually our welcome to our guest today, and we hope definitely to start with them, not only to listen, but also to discuss for collaborative think on why we can do with Fork. And I invite on the stage, on the virtual stage, one of the founders, so Ricardo Bonaccio, with Fabio Parasecoli, professor at the NYU University, and Albert Fuster, who is the academic director of Elisava, for starting discussing about our first pillars, which is research and education. So I leave the stage to my colleague.
Thank you, Sonia. Hi, hello, everyone. So thank you so much for being here with us today in such a special moment for all of us. And thank you to Albert and Fabio for being here and give your opinion about this pillar of Fork, that is education and research. And my idea for this discussion with you, this talk, this brief talk, is more because I prepared 3 questions for you. And I would like to know what you think about these 3 ideas that are some thoughts that we are preparing for our program on research and education. I've been working on food design education for several years, and mainly because I'm a designer, but also because I teach food design in the gastronomy and the culinary arts school. And of course, this is a particular context that allowed me to get in touch with different professionals, not only from design, but from nutrition, food science, culinary arts and gastronomy. And I have to adapt myself as a designer from my background to create this new kind of vocabulary to talk with students that doesn't have this kind of background. So I have these 3 questions for you that I would like to hear about your opinion. And then in the end, if you want to add something, there is some noise here. Sorry, can you remove the sound? Okay, thank you. So, in your opinion, what kind of educational programs should students attend to get argumentation and action in the world of food design? And the second one is, does teaching food design make more sense in a design school or in a gastronomy culinary arts school? And the last one is, and more than training future food designers, what about, or what do you think about food literacy programs to educate different stakeholders, not only the students, but the industry, the academy, the citizens, about the importance and the role of food design nowadays in society? So I would start probably with Albert and then move to Fabio.
Hi. Thank you, Ricardo. And thanks, of course, for inviting me, and congratulations for the initiatives. Related to your questions, which are really relevant and deep, I think that several of the topics that have been mentioned are really important. You meant action, and I think here it's really important to understand the active part of what you're suggesting. So the capacity that is called creativity, this capacity of human beings to perform innovative and different things of those that we already have. So I think this is key, and I really support this active and performative dimension of this, let's say, discipline of food design, in contrast with many others like food studies or gastronomy or food industry or whatever, in which there's a knowledge, of course, but this knowledge is not developed through, surely through this active way, or not that much. And I connect to one thing mentioned by Sonia, which is this idea of opportunities rather than problems. And in this way, I want to push the capacity of design, of course, of any art or creative discipline, but especially here of design, to bring to the table, and using this metaphor is clear here, bring to the table things that were not in the framework of no one when entering that context or that mindset or whatever. So I think this is really important to understand this action, creativity as action to bring opportunities between many stakeholders that may know a lot, may have lots of relations and know-how, but maybe don't have the capacity to bring to life, to give form to these new opportunities that they don't even expect. So this is what I would really stress of your first question.
Sorry. And what do you think about this idea of teaching food design? It's a better choice to do it in a design school, or for example, in a gastronomy, culinary arts, or other school that have this kind of degrees related to food. What do you think? Or a mix between a collaboration between schools that have these two different areas of expertise.
Of course, my answer may be biased because I'm the academic director of a design school in Barcelona. So, but I strongly believe that this has to be led by design schools in terms of the capacity that design has to integrate the communicative dimension, the human dimension, the material dimension, these ideas of health and well-being. I mean, if design is something, is that discipline that is able to connect all these topics and issues and human concerns and to try to collect them all and develop relevant outcomes that can contribute to transform and improve all this huge environment. Of course, chefs do so. When I've discussed these issues with many people through last year, someone says, well, what you mean is a chef. I mean, for years there have been cooks that do these things. No, I think that there's this human, cultural, communicative, interrelational dimension related to the soil, to the legacy, and so on. That is an expertise, a clear expertise of design that has to be the one to lead this thread.
Yeah, but in this case, if we want to bring this kind of education in food design into design schools, we need also to prepare schools in order to receive other areas of expertise that are very important for the education of these future food designers, because in design we have, of course, all these abilities and tools and methodologies that you are talking about, but to be a food designer, it is also very necessary to have knowledge in food, but in a scientific way. The technology, the food science, the nutrition, the food security. So what you're saying is, okay, we have this kind of degrees in design schools, but we have also to be aware that we need to create conditions and facilities for the students to have this kind of knowledge. In otherwise, we have to collaborate with schools that have already this kind of expertise.
Of course. I mean, I'm not saying that design has to be isolated and has to be like the princess of the party. I think that as, for example, happened in the Ulm school in the late 50s, that they raised awareness of the importance of the scientific knowledge and the social sciences knowledge on design. It was a design school, it was led by designers, but they raised awareness of this importance and they brought many scientists, sociologists, philosophers, and so on. I think that this is a similar moment. We have this deal of soil health and food, which I think it's relevant in Europe and in the world right now. And I think that this is a next step or an upgrade of what a designer is expected to know and deal with. And yes, we have to bring people from gastronomy, from industry, from many other fields to bring knowledge to this core capacity of creating things for opportunities. Yes, of course.
Okay, what do you think, even before we create these educational programs for students to go in the field of or discipline or territory of food design, don't you think that it is important for us that are starting to create this organization and are working with different fields of expertise to create educational programs, not only for the students, but first of all for the consumer and the citizen, and then for the industry and the academy, of course, because in the end, the students need to work in their future. So they need to have this kind of position in the market and be self-prepared to the professional world.
Yeah, I do agree, and I really like your term of food literacy. I think it's really important to establish like a consensus on the one hand, the knowledge and the terminology, the practices, the potential outcomes of this, and to bring this consensus and also spread it through training, both inside the school or university, but in companies or for any other person. Because normally when disciplines have like this corpus, these layers and layers of knowledge, terminology, practices, expected outcomes, and so on, methodologies, then is when society is capable to understand the importance of this discipline and can share the results of it, and also, as mentioned, invest on it, because it's really important that everyone understands what's happening there in the same language to start a real interaction.
Mm-hmm. And Fabio, you have a different background from me, from Albert. What do you think about that?
So for just to introduce a little bit what I do, I work in a food studies program. So it's not culinary, it's not design, but for my personal experiences, I've been working with chefs and designers for many years. I would say that there is a difference. There could be two different issues here. One, to provide a food design education, also in programs that are not specifically about food design. In my master's in food studies, for instance, I have introduced a class on food and design because I think it's very important to be exposed to design methods, but also to the specificity of food design applied to food and all this ferment that we see around. And I think that would be also very useful, I don't know, in agricultural schools. When you have to think about new technology, introduction of new technologies, you have to be able to think in terms of design and food design because you will be dealing with consumers. I'm thinking about business schools. Sometimes that would be very useful to hospitality school, and where you teach is also hospitality. So that's one part. The other part is programs that are focused on food design. For me, it's hard to tell if they sit better in the culinary or in design. I think probably they would attract different people. So they would be inflected differently. In the culinary school, the focus would be cooking, techniques and technology. And the food design would support that toward that specific direction, and probably occupations after the degree. In a design school, it's sort of the flip side of this, right? So designers would need to know more about food, the materialities, the techniques, to do what they have to do. But probably, you know, they would offer different programs, and maybe there is room for both of them. As for the industry, yes, I think it's very important. I also consult quite often with food industries and, you know, and museums and other initiatives that connect food and design. And what I've noticed is that the industry, employers, do have the need for food design, but they do not articulate it in terms of food design as such. So they know that what food design brings is important. They are still not thinking of it as food design in terms of a specific set of skills and knowledge and expertise. I think that's what's going to be very important, and probably Fork will play an important role there, to create this translation about what's already happening in the industry, the need in the industry, and what's happening in food design, and make the two worlds understand that, you know, the need is there, and the students that come out of food design programs can actually help industries, especially now, you know, many food industries are rethinking themselves in terms of sustainability, circular economy, food justice, all these elements. And very often they don't know where to start from. You know, they might start from the point of view of communication, but that then becomes greenwashing, basically. It doesn't change anything. You need deeper changes. And for that, I think food designers are better equipped. So hopefully that will be the case in the future. And there's also our responsibility when we work with the industry to remind them, you know, you can keep on calling us old people, but there are tons of young people full of ideas that, you know, need a good opportunity. So maybe internships or, you know, sort of transitory periods between school and work would also be useful.
Yeah, but don't you think that, for example, industry is not ready to receive these students because industry doesn't understand what is the meaning of food design and why it's the why not? What's the work of a food designer in the role of, for example, developing a food service, a food product, or a food experience?
I think they understand the topic, what's needed. They don't think of it in terms of food design. And that's the translation part. Mm-hmm. They keep on hiring people that work precisely on that, on services, on experiences, on environments, but they don't frame it in terms of food design. So I think that's the one of the issues. Have them understand that what they're already doing and what they're already looking for is food design.
Yeah. And what do you think, for both of you now, what do you think this idea of there is a gap between industry and academia, and probably if this relationship between the industry and academia were more closed and the students has this more approach to the industry while they are in schools, could be a benefit for their role in the future. Because I think, for example, here in Portugal, when I talk about the academia, they are very close in themselves. They are doing the research, they are going to conference, they publish their papers, they research, but there is always this kind of gap between the scholars that are doing the research and then the industry that has this more practical work and are in more contact direct with the market.
Absolutely, the connection is very important. In the academic environment where I work in the US, this is already very strong. there is this sense that students have to do internships. The issue there is that industries start to get internships for free, and students want to be paid for their work. So that's where the problem is, not the problem that academia needs internships. And academics are quite attuned to that. Here in Europe, it's a little different because of the structure of academia and also how academics get promoted and have their careers. So it might be slightly more complicated, but I already collaborate with schools in Europe that do have good connection with the industry, and they allow internships. And not only in food design, I teach a class in a course, it's called Integrated Food Design in Copenhagen University, Integrated Food Studies, sorry, in Copenhagen University. And even if it's a food studies program, the students are assigned real clients to work with during their second year. And for them, that's an amazing, it's an amazing experience because they get to sort of put in reality all the stuff that they have been studying. It's not easy because it's difficult to work with clients. It's difficult to deal with real world problems. But in this case, it is the university that does the effort of finding, clients around mostly Copenhagen, but anyway, in Denmark. So I think that model could be also brought into, design schools do it much more. And I assume also culinary schools do it much more. In more traditional academic environment, I can see it might be a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I completely agree with Fabio's point of view. And I like to add that for me, that a gap exists is good news because it enhances differences, nuances. It's not the same industry than a school. It's not the same a city than the countryside. I mean, there has to be a gap, but this gap has to be bridged. And I think this is really, really good. And there are lots of course, the Anglo-Saxon environment has been working on that for years. Maybe Southern Europe is not that fluent in that. But in terms of design schools, I think that right now design schools have the assumption of being active stakeholders of society. So even when Fabio spoke, he mentioned the real or reality apart from university. And this is something that we have completely to break. Universities, design schools are part of the reality. Mm-hmm. This reality is built by many stakeholders that have gaps between them, but this whole reality will be built while bridging all these different knowledge, contexts, and so on for a better future. So I think this is a key issue that universities facing right now, to consider themselves part of the reality. Mm-hmm. Of the world.
That's perfect. I'm sorry to interrupt you and get in this conversation because I want to thank Ricardo first and our guest as well, because we need also to get through the other topics. I think you opened like the big box. So this was not just the ending of the conversation, but I believe it was just the beginning. We touched many important things that we will actually replicate in the next parameters. I think the capacity of design, the design as a competence, the transdisciplinarity of design, which maybe is not only in the design school or culinary school, but instead it can go transversally to many other disciplines, to many other sectors that now we're not listing. And then, of course, the idea that why food does need design, maybe it should be a key question that we have to transfer to the industry, transfer to the real world, like Fabio said, and Albert also said many times, because we need what we call it the innovation brokerage. So what we need is like to bring together academia and the needs from outside and finding a common ground that nowadays doesn't work. I would like to say this is very general from different perspectives. And this is bringing us to talk about a specific sector that maybe was actually looking at the design, maybe with some suspicion or like with, kind of curiosity, but not really understanding. Fabio mentioned about the translation, how we can translate the word design in a more understandable, competence, in a more understandable tool that everybody can use it. So we go inside of the gastronomy, we go inside of the culinary arts, and I invite another founder of Fork, Antonio Barreca, with two our guests, two chefs, Chas Titus and Cristina Bauerman, one from Spain, one from Italy, to discuss about what it could be the role of design in their own sector. So Antonio, we switch in Spanish.
Hola, hola a todos. En primer lugar, gracias a Barcelona Design Week, gracias a todas las personas que están aquí, que hay unas 80 personas viéndonos en directo, y gracias, Rebeca, por esa introducción tan maravillosa que has hecho. ¿Vale? Muy rápidamente, y yendo al grano, Food Design aporta valor a la cadena de valor, valga la redundancia, del sistema alimentario. La parte gastronómica forma parte de ese sistema alimentario. Forma parte de un subsector que aquí en España al menos se le llama HoReCa: restauración, hoteles y catering. Profesionales duramente golpeados por la pandemia que estamos sufriendo. Si entendemos que Food Design aporta soluciones y aporta valor a todo el sistema alimentario, debe de aportar evidentemente valor y soluciones a la gastronomía en sí misma, ¿no? A partir de ahí, el objetivo de Ford dentro de la gastronomía, dentro del mundo de la restauración, no es ni más ni menos que empoderar al canal y al consumidor directo, porque este canal sí tiene un acceso directo al consumidor. Otros canales posiblemente no, pero evidentemente en un restaurante, en un espacio físico donde se consume alimentos, obviamente la interacción con el consumidor directo es total, ¿no? En ese sentido, y hablando con Chas, como chef y como food designer que es, simplemente le traslado tres sencillas respuestas. Si entendemos que nuestra misión desde Fork es empoderar al canal íntegramente y al consumidor, a través de, Fabio lo comentaba, a través de la integración educacional, a través de programas que aceleren la innovación en el propio canal, a través de programas, iniciativas que prescriban al profesional del food design dentro del canal, y creo que la más importante, a través de iniciativas o programas que empoderen directamente al consumidor para conseguir ese objetivo final, que es el rediseño del sistema alimentario actual, que, como dirán posteriormente, es insostenible. A partir de ahí, tres preguntas. Directamente, Chas, o sea, hay miles de profesionales integrados en este sector. O sea, el sector HoReCa en general, el hospitality, da trabajo a millones de personas en todo el mundo, ¿vale? ¿Cómo ves tú como profesional que trabaja ahí? O sea, es decir, que desde Ford se promulgue, digamos, programas de mentorización para todos esos profesionales que posiblemente no puedan evolucionar por otros medios si no son empoderados desde instituciones que apuestan por ello. Sigo y ahora me las encadenas una detrás de otra. Si llegamos a la conclusión que ahora mismo cambiar la forma en que se producen los alimentos, cambiar cómo compramos, cómo se cocina, cómo comemos, incluso cómo pensamos en el alimento, más allá del hecho nutricional, desde la profesión del chef, del cocinero, desde el empresario de la restauración, ¿consideráis que estáis obligados a empoderar al consumidor, a empoderar a esas personas que van a consumir a vuestros locales, por ejemplo? Y por último, yo sé que es complejo que un diseñador y un chef trabajen juntos, o que un food designer y un chef trabajen juntos. Esto es un tema de ego, las cosas como son. El mayor food designer de la historia es un tal Ferran Adrià, que fue el primero que aplicó en el mundo de la gastronomía el diseño, ¿vale? No sé si Cristina andará por ahí. Cristina es una gran chef, ¿vale? Chas es un chef y food designer. ¿Qué crees, Chas? Y no sé si Cristina andará por ahí, pero ¿qué crees, Chas, que que entiende el cocinero, que entiende el profesional de la gastronomía, que es food design, ¿vale? Más allá de que son cuestiones que no se van a solapar jamás. O sea, food design va más allá del arte culinario. Food design va más allá de la cuestión formal. ¿Qué es lo que crees que entiende ese tipo de profesional? Ese perfil de profesional al cual desde Ford queremos ayudar.
Okay, gracias, Antonio. Ahora contesto. Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful presentation. I greatly appreciate it. I will try to answer all of Antonio's questions straight away, okay? I think a fork plays a very important role in gastronomy. Because fork will have the capacity to unite professionals from different fields and disciplines. This will generate new connections and a lot of collaboration opportunities, which will in fact create strong synergy that will lead to finding effective solutions to address the biggest problems in our food systems. For gastronomy, this is of utmost importance. We chefs have now the responsibility to look beyond cooking to run our operations, rethink what we do, and break the boundaries of our own profession to foster meaningful change in our food systems. We are aware that we need to take action to create impact and make a better world. But as chefs, we have the power to drive innovation by offering our diners inspiration and new ways of appreciating, valuing, and enjoying food. But most important of all, knowledge. If we share our knowledge about food, cooking, or sustainability in the kitchen, we would help people by changing their perception about food, empowering them to make the right food choices, shape their diets, and live a healthier and a more sustainable lifestyle. Now, regarding design, I think that design would be a great addition to the chef's arsenal, because the chef's power can be magnified by design thinking. For example, our power can be magnified by collaboration and co-creation, and that's what design brings to the table. This means building multidisciplinary teams, which boost creativity and help us connect with ideas, processes, and people from other disciplines, and step out of our comfort zone. Different points of view and criteria required to foster debate and critical thinking, thus enriching the creative process and finding optimal solutions. In fact, that's what Ferran Adrià did at El Bulli many years ago, and he revolutionized gastronomy because he had a multidisciplinary team, scientists, anthropologists, engineers, and chemists, and so on. As you can see, design brings in collaboration with other professionals, which is key for gastronomy. Regarding the industry, this collaboration between chefs and food designers, for example, would cause a great and very positive impact. For example, right now there is a big hype about plant-based proteins. There are some good options in the market, but some of them simply do not taste well. They are still under development. So why create a protein that emulates seafood by using artificial flavorings to make it taste like shrimp, for example? Imagine if a chef, a food designer, and a food scientist collaborated in creating a protein with its own identity using seaweed to give it a marine flavor. That would be awesome. Another example. Sorry, are you talking to me? No. No. Okay, sorry. No, I saw you waving. Another example would be the collaboration between a chef and a food designer. Chefs would benefit greatly from food design, which would help them broaden their horizons and help them create with empathy, using new ingredients, innovate, and offer memorable dining experiences and delight the senses and generate emotions for their diners. As you can see, opportunities for collaboration are endless. In November, for example, our company Singular Foods will be hosting a mentoring program, and we will gather a group of diverse professionals like chefs, designers, strategists, and industry experts with the sole objective of helping chefs and restaurateurs to improve their operations, especially those hit by the pandemic. We will be doing food design thinking workshops and providing restaurant management and culinary advice. And in this case, the support of Fork would definitely spark change in the restaurant industry and the world of gastronomy.
Thank you, Chad. I think you were mentioning many really points in which the gastronomy cover. I would like to say the experimentation as well, the creativity. And I want to bring in this conversation also Christina Bauerman, the chef Christina Bauerman. I hope she can be connected. I can see her on the iPhone. Christina, can you hear us? I hope so. Let me double check. I think she was connected 5 seconds ago. Okay, here we go. Christina, can you hear us? Almost.
I don't know why.
That's perfect, but you can
Hello.
listen. You can hear us. We cannot
Yeah,
see
I can
you.
hear you. Yeah, I
That's
don't know why. It says my video is stopped. I don't know why.
Perfect. We're going to
Can you
share
guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
I'm not really sure why. Technology.
No problem. No problem. I bring you in the conversation before. I was inspired by something that was written by a common friend this morning on his Facebook wall. And it was a provocative message. It said, you know, now when I'm going to sit in a starred restaurant, I'm expecting not the perfection, but later on, I'm expecting experimentation, novelty, risk, courage, and creativity. I think this is a key point. I'm going to, and he added, I need to satisfy the money, the time, and my resources when I'm there. And this is what I'm expecting from a chef who wants to be different and wants to bring something new. So I want from you the concreteness. So exactly how design can improve, can be helpful, can support a chef in this process. What do you think about it? And of course, what are the difficulties for a chef who wants to, you know, interact with designer and getting through a research system to make innovation? Can you actually share your point with us?
Wow, this is a long point. You know, what your friend wrote on the Facebook wall, for me, can be condensed in just one word. Whenever somebody goes to a place like either a Michelin starred or a very famous restaurant, he or she expects the unexpected. That's what I think it is. It is really the need of having new feelings, new sensations, new how can I say this? New things, something that he or she has never experimented before. So the unexpected is exactly what people, you know, expect whenever they go to a restaurant and they want to experience something. How food design can come into this in many, many ways. One of the things I was thinking during, you know, the previous speakers is that sometimes food design has been misconcepted and misrepresented. A lot of people think that food design really concerns the design of food, which for me has little to do with this. The many ways in which the food design can come into play, and I'm sorry about the noise, by the way, but in the middle of the street, I'm on a movie set, so I really apologize for that. One of the things that, one of the ways that food design can actually help out is to create a new way to experiment all things. You see, when people sit down at the table, they want to experiment, but then at the same time, they need to have a line of connection. So the line of connection could be to your childhood, to a flavor that you already know, or to the way that you eat. And that's the way that food design can help. You know, it's not just about food. It's not just about the dish. It's just about the whole thing. Let's think about, for instance, how something is served. Or, for instance, how can the food design help out industries that we never expected before? The way that, for instance, the food is delivered, or the way that food is delivered to the table, or, for instance, the way that food is actually built and brought to the table, but not necessarily the table at the restaurant. It could be even at your house. The way that I imagine food design coming into play whenever we talk about food or something that is related to food is everything that concerns food. So even, for instance, food design can help out how to deliver. Right now, during this last year of COVID, delivery has taken off. And we have had many, many Michelin star restaurants or high-end restaurants that deliver food. Well, imagine how many ways the food design can help out, not only from an aesthetic point of view, but also a technical point of view. In fact, the trick is just there. Whenever you talk about food design, people think about just the aesthetic, but it's not that. The way that I've always thought about food design is how can a designer, period, so not a food designer, a designer can help me out to create that experience that is different from anything else, but then at the same time creates a line of connection. I'm not talking about fireworks. I'm talking about really a different way to approach food. So one of the things that always comes to mind is whenever you deliver food into hospitals, for instance, or into soup kitchen, sorry. Well, food designers can actually make a difference in this particular field, and that's the way that it should be. So food design for me is an art, and it has its own dignity and its own part of the place, basically in society and in the educational field. That's why I always think that food design should be like a subject on its own. And more than anything else, it should be a subject, a very important one, in every single university, college, even high school, because that's what I think relates and makes a difference overall. I don't know how to express this any better, but the only thing I know is that one of the things that I debate all the time is that people get confused between the food design and design, in this field. And for me, that's what makes a difference. It was basically probably, I don't know, a mistake in the beginning just to call it that way. Maybe food designers should have been called a different way, but that's what I think it needs to be rooted out in general.
Thank you. You definitely didn't misunderstood, and you were actually completing also the presentation of Chad, I believe, by including in this idea of new food, new actually proposal also for your customers, for both of your customers, also the idea of preserving a biodiversity, preserving a territory that goes through cultural heritage to innovation. So I believe this is also an issue. What does it mean to preserve, but what does it mean preserving for innovating? And so practically you and Charles both were including design as one of the tools in your toolkit as a chef, one of the tools or one of the human resources, maybe that it could be also like getting and hiring a designer in your team, like a purpose for the next future, which is going to be linked to what we discussed in the panel before, where actually we need to find a space for all of those food designer or designer about food that are now at the university, are now in the schools, and they need to find their own space in the job market. So definitely, right. I would love to thank both. You don't know, Christina, that you were not visible. What we put one.
I don't know why. I think I actually pushed later, which I should have pushed like right away. If you could do that again, maybe I push like now.
Don't worry, we got your great pictures in, so everybody could see you in a static pose, but we saw you, and I want to.
There it is. There I am.
I want to thank you and Chad both for giving us your point of view, from the gastronomy point of view, from the cuisine point of view, from the culinary art point of view. Thank you so much. And this is giving us the opportunity to jump into the third pillars for fork, which is very important for us as well, which is the industry. It was mentioned 3-4 times, every person comes with, at that point, with one sentence, say, but the food industry should do this, but the food industry needs to do that. So now we need to talk about food industry, or at least the agri-food business. I want to invite on the virtual stage another founder, which is Pedro Alvarez, and one of our guests, Clara Bartra, who is the General Director of Food Tech Hub for World Fooding, that will discuss about this issue. So what is the role of food industry and what is the purpose as for we can actually provide to the food industry for the future?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sonia, and thank you to the Barcelona Food Design Week for hosting us, and thank you, Rebecca, for helping us and making the introduction today, and thank you everybody connected to this afternoon. It's in such a very important day for us, and also to my dear colleague Clara Bartra. She knows that the agri-food industry is facing huge challenges nowadays. You got the climate change already affecting agriculture, the global population growth, so more people, we will need more food. We are suffering from hunger and obesity, while 1/3 of the food produced is lost or wasted. Consumers are becoming aware of the relation between food and health, and also between food and sustainability, and they are changing their food habits and choices. And as she knows, there is a global framework of SDGs trying to reverse the effects of the actual broken systems. And also many startups out there are developing breakthrough technologies and innovations that will disrupt the way we produce, manufacture, and eat food. So now my question to my dear colleague Clara is, what does it take to redesign and build the agri-food industry of the future to be more sustainable, healthy, and fair? Is it necessary to add new profiles to the teams that can lead this change? Because if we are the same people doing the same things, we're going to get the same results. So are food designers an unknown and unexplored assets? Could the food industry benefit finally from having food designers to accelerate this change, Clara? Are you there?
I'm there now. Many questions. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very important session today. I hope I will provide some interesting insights from the industry, as it is so important for you too. First of all, to answer your question, Pedro, I would say industry needs to be shaken. I mean, the fact is that the industry is moving to make money and to have profitability. And industry is moving, thinking on the present and what's happening today in the real market, in the current shelf, in the current consumers, and with the current needs. And this is the way it works. So we also need to understand that this is also about business. But at the moment when we'll be able to provide business leaders the insight of the future is changing, and it's going to be disrupted in a way that either they change or will not survive. This is what will make the difference. So what needs to be done for the industry is to change the perspective. So first is to change the perspective of what is happening today and what will happen in the near future. And they need to understand that this is not about being generous, because maybe we will find some CEOs who are very committed with the purpose. But this is about business survival as well. So I think that at the moment that we will be able to make this mindset change to leaders, this will happen. So this is the first thing. And when this happens, what needs to be happening is that industry change the perspective of time and look beyond the current boundaries and look beyond the current time as well and start looking at the future. And when this happens, you were talking about who should do that and which will be the capabilities. We need to reskill everything and everyone. And here probably food designers will have a role, because we need a cultural mindset to be changed for the whole levels of the food industry employees. We need more capacity to learn, to unlearn, to understand consumers, to understand the changes, to integrate technology and design into the business. Something that food industry used to be very traditional, and now it's being disruptive and will be more disruptive in the future. So this type of wording were not integrated in our daily life. And we need to be more creative. This is something that the design knows a lot about it. And we cannot do it alone. I mean, industry cannot do it alone. So the greater the challenge it is, the most important than ever is to open the ecosystem. As Chas was saying before, I subscribe all the words that he was saying. This is the moment of open innovation. So we need to integrate new capacities to our organization and complementary capacities. People who have the perspective of looking abroad with no inertias and no business to protect. And people who have the capacity to understand of which the ultimate technology to be implemented, to fully understand what will happen with the climate change, which are the potential solutions, and how this will impact to the business, positive and negative, as an opportunities and threats. So yes, I think there is a role to integrate these food designers in organizations. We need change makers to drive organizations from now on. So should food designers be the change maker role, or should be part of this open innovation ecosystem that innovation leaders should integrate in the organization? I don't know.
I think this is, Clara, already happening, because you know that in the past, a food company could just, with a few Nielsen reports and trends, could just develop new innovations with the R&D team and the marketing team. But now the reality is too complex. And it's not just, things cannot be solved with one report. So as you mentioned, I believe also, like you're saying, and I subscribe it as well, open innovation is the platform, is the solution to open your company to collaborate with startups, with innovators, with food designers, with chefs, with the academy. Otherwise, you're going to be left alone, and you probably will survive. But what happened to the next generations, or to your company in the future? So I believe that it's not just the role of the food design or food designer, but I think this is being understood little by little. I've seen corporates and SMEs hiring innovators, consultants, freelancers, just to start doing things differently. And I assume that most of those innovators are in some way food designers or has this design background.
Yeah, I was telling Pedro a few days ago that the first time I heard this word of food design was just a few weeks ago. I mean, I've been driving innovation for a long time in a big corporate, and we've never talked about food design. I think that food design should be, as I understand, something like to create from scratch something with purpose, to understanding the well-being of people who you want to serve. in this sense, I think that the innovation process that we use in companies is something very similar to that. Once we use tools like design thinking, then we start with understanding consumers, we empathize with them, we identify unmet needs, then we design concepts, and then we prototype those concepts and then test the concepts. So this movement is already present in some companies that are working in disruptive innovation. But it's true that for defensive innovation, which is maybe 95% of the innovation that's been done in companies, we are more looking just in the narrow way what's happening in our narrow market with our narrow needs and consumers. And this is something that have to change because market will drive us to do so.
It's also a good point to know where to educate yourself in food design, because I have attended the Strategizer with Alex Ostenbalder courses. I have read many books, some of food design, some of innovation. I'm not a designer, but I am performing the functions of a food designer in some way. So it's good that we can provide a way to learn and to have a degree in food design and make the food industry understand where to look for this kind of roles. Otherwise, it's just whether you add some consultants, external consultants, or you do yourself as you've done all your life, and myself as well.
I have nothing else to add here, just there are different ways to do so. As I was saying at the beginning, companies food companies need to be more disruptive for their survival.
And definitely I'm going to get in this conversation. I think you pointed out, both of you, key points related to the awareness of the company from one side, that they need to understand the potentiality of design, but also the responsibility of the new professionals, of the new manager that nowadays need to take care about everything. So the systemic thinking that we never mentioned today, it's really important. So I think also a key point, it's this transdisciplinarity we mentioned at the beginning. It can be also defined through your word as a trans-cultural perspective, but also transgenerational perspective. So something that the new is coming and need to be accepted, to not only to be disruptive, but as part of the system, as part of the new way of. And maybe reframing the way how we think in companies, in industry, means also reframe the KPI. So something that in marketing, we need to have very clear what it is, but in design, those are totally reframed. And design can help to reframe the idea of the goals because of the consumers, I would like to say, a more informed and more prepared demand, but also a more prepared system that can work together. And again, I'm underlining Pedro's point, like everybody should be connected, because if one side works alone, there will be never a change. So this is why academia, industry, culinary arts, and maybe other sectors that today we would not mention need to work together to make the change. So this is really important. So thank you both for introducing and getting the opportunity to talk about the food industry and the company's point of view. And we jump into the next part of our conversation that cover the topic of food design in more general sense. I would like to say this brings to us the potentiality of design. So eating design, food design, or at least we can actually define it like the importances of creativity in the food sector, in the agri-food sector. So let's try to understand why does food need design and why fork can be helpful. I'm introducing on the stage another founder from Fork, Mariana Heidler, who will interview Mariah Vogelsang, who I believe everybody knows because he's one of the most important, I would like to say, the first eating designer that we can actually, which we can talk about the development of the design in the food sector. Mariana?
Hello. Hi, Sonia. Thank you very much. Hi, Mariah. So I think that the other partners thanked everyone. So thank you everyone for being here. And thank you, Mariah, for being here today. Because the first time that I heard about food design, I heard someone talking about you. So it's for me a special moment to be talking with you about this. So we know that there is an open debate about what food design is, and there's a lot of people talking and trying to define what it is and how it is and what includes and what does not include. And there's also people that, like you, has been working into food design for a long time, and now you're like trying to explain everyone what is eating design and opening again other windows, but focusing on what we need to talk today, which is the importance of design regarding to food and how design can help maybe some like reshaping this food system that we've been talking during all this time, and thinking that Fork was born with the desire of collaborate in defining the content of the term of food design, which is, as we know, maybe not yet defined and understood by the society in one sense. So if you say I'm a food designer, they don't know what you do, and everyone will say one thing, right? A different thing. So in terms of social understanding, what does it mean to you to be a designer when design is related with food? This would be my first question. I have three, so we will try to be fast, but we're really happy to hear you.
Thank you, Mariana. And I just want to start with saying that I think Fork is an amazing initiative. I think this is really wonderful that this is happening right now. So I have been working with food and design for about 22 years now. And I can really see that there's a lot of things that are happening right now. And I think if you look at this from a global perspective, you can see that it seems as if everything is finally getting aligned to make food and design, eating design, food design, however you want to name it, finally a kind of grown up field. And I'm not sure if you would really want to identify what is or is not food design. I think the nice thing about it is that we speak about the essence of life, which is food, and food concerns us all. So whenever you, from a creative perspective, deal with such a topic, I think it is really wonderful that it is undefined and that everybody can engage with it, because we all eat. And all human beings have an imaginative mind. Some people are professional creatives, other people are not, but we all have the capacity to imagine something different for the future, for example. And I think this is the true power of food and design, because it means that whenever you are working with food on a creative level, that design is not the aim. Design is the tool and the method, and the aim is food, and the actor is the human being. And what we aim to do is using design as a method or a technology or a way of thinking to apply to food to make it connect with human beings in a more sensible way. And I think this is one of the most optimistic fields to be in at this point of time.
Great, thank you very much. I really agree with you, and thanks for your congratulations. We are very happy to be doing that it's not easy, as you know. So related with what you were saying, and also Christina was telling something related to this. She was talking about the unexpected. So when you go to have a meal somewhere, it's like, of course, you're going to have something that maybe you know, but it's unexpected. So the future is also unexpected, right? So what should be the role of the food designers in the future from your point of view? Is it unexpected?
Yeah, well, I think we have to start with the mind of the eating human being. I think that's where it all starts, because our way of thinking is trained to be very linear, which means that we cannot really see different potential outcomes of an issue, for example. We want to, you know, when we know about, for example, one thing, let's say drones, then we think the future is all about drones, right? And it's not easy for us to think in different ways. And I think this is something to start training, to start seeing different perspectives on the things that are maybe already there. And all of this starts with the simple understanding what the true value of food is. And I think if you start with the eating human being and helping them to understand the true value of food, then you can start to think of the future. But if you start to think of the future right now and start to make solutions for all these people that will need to eat, of course, that is a wonderful thing to do. But if the eating human being is just a kind of mindless, consuming, unsensitive beast, then I'm not sure if design is used in the right way. What can we do today to make sure that the future will be a natural side effect of a creative mind that can see different opportunities, or that can think in a different way? Because I think this is really crucial, because you do work with the essence, which is food. So you also need to work with what is the essence of the human being, and that's their thinking power. And that can be then translated into beautiful designs and unexpected ideas.
Great. So that's about creativity, right? Yeah, this is the idea. And regarding that, what do you think is the way that design relates with gastronomy and with the food industry nowadays?
Yeah. Well, I think, we all know examples of amazing experiences in gastronomy, but I think we know more examples of really boring things that are happening in gastronomy. And all around the world, the majority of what is being offered in gastronomy is the same, or more or less the same, and very mediocre, not good quality, and not really appealing to you as a human being. And I think this is the cool thing, that sometimes you can just help someone to think in a different pattern so that they can make different choices. And I'm talking about the people who are operating in gastronomy, because many times people do the things just because they think, well, that's the way we do it. But if you help people to see that sometimes making 2 or 3 different decisions in what you do in your business, then you might even save money and also make a really exciting experience for your guests. And you can see that a lot of consumers are really opening up more and more to having true valuable experiences, because we are living in a digital world, sitting behind the computer as we are right now. So when we go out, when we want to have a gastronomy experience, we also want to engage all our senses. So this moment is a perfect moment to see or to assess, like, what am I really doing? And what can I create to make people connect to life through food?
Mm-hmm. Wow, super interesting. I would be hearing you for hours, and I guess that everyone else would do so. So it's super interesting, but I really appreciate your participation into this debate. And it's my due now to explain you a little bit of Sonia Massari, who's the one that's been speaking for hours in here. And also about all the other founders, before we explain you which are the next points that we will take into this organization. So Sonia Massari is researcher, lecturer, and consultant, and designer in the fields of sustainability and education at Food Design and Innovative Agri-Food, and she's been awarded, and she's been director of different universities, like the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign Food Studies programs in Rome. and she teaches in different European and international universities. She's a senior consultant in the Barilla Foundation also, and she's a board member of the Association of the Study of Food Design Society. So we really are happy to be co-founders with you, Sonia. Then I'll introduce Ricardo Bonaccio, who's got a degree in communication and a PhD in food design with the specialty of design bites. And he's the director of the Food Design Master and at the Estoril Higher Institute of Tourism. And he is a CAUD member. I will also introduce you, Pedro Alvarez, who's another of our founders, who's CEO of Ibero, and he's been working in the food innovation for a lot of years. He's a venture building and early stage investor in Agri-Food innovative CPG at food tech in Spain, Israel, and USA. And also he's part of the EU EIC jury team for the EIC Accelerated Pillar Accelerator program in Brussels. And then last but not least, Antonio Barrera, who's the former creative director of Telefonica and Grupo Z. And he's been working in the strategy and the technology field for a lot of years. And he's now the Food Design Festival director that he created, and he's spreading the word of food design. And I will present myself. I'm Mariana Eidler. I'm the director of the Study Abroad program in Elisava. I've been working in the teaching area in the Academy of Elisava for a lot of years, and I'm an art director in Tactica Barcelona. So mainly you have an idea of who we are, and then I'm gonna share a slide so that you can see, which is, I'm gonna share it in a way that it's, okay, great. So this is our manifesto, which maybe you've seen in Instagram, but we want you to hear it from us, because FORK once changes the food system, empowers the international food design community, drives food design research pathways, supports funding impactful projects, creates links between food and design knowledge, disseminates food design opportunities, feeds food innovation challenges, engages communities to find solutions, and breaks the conventional boundaries. So actually what we wanted to transmit to you is that this organization was founded to have all of you and everybody that wants to be near us and near everyone together to do any of these things that you see here. And then again, before we open the debate, just to remind you, if you want to picture this slide, how to collaborate with us, because you can get into the nets and you will start seeing us into LinkedIn and Instagram and on the website too. So which are the next steps that we were saying before? We will be in Food Design Festival that, as we said, is directed by our co-founder, Antonio Barrera. And it will be held in July, the last week in July. We will be there also having a chat, and also in many of the debate tables. And we decided to open up this Food Design Day, October 16, that you will be all invited to do any activity that you feel like. So feel free to write us if you want to participate and to propose things to us. Then we will have the eFood conference, which is a conference that is being held in Lisbon. It's every 2 years, and it's directed by Ricardo Bonaccio, and will take place in May 22 in Lisbon again, and then we'll come up to Barcelona for 3 editions. And you will see information about the eFood conference soon into the eFood conference page. So you can send your papers and your participation with your keynotes, proposals, and then you will enter into the selection. And then we will have, like Sonia said before, our FORK Food Design Award, which is a tool for us to see which are the projects that into our manifesto and our goals would be the best projects to be helped to be done. And we will try to choose the ones that needed more help to find funds and to be ready to become a real solution for the system. So again, this is okay. So thank you very much to everybody. I will invite again Sonia Massari to share with you the questions that maybe I will read, and then maybe Sonia, you can talk to the people. And we will start about with the question of Alisa NG. I don't know, Alisa, if you're here yet. It says, what are some learning materials that were instrumental in developing your expertise in food design? So this question maybe is for the experts in education. What are some learning materials that were instrumental in developing your expertise in food design?
Well, I will try to ask, although I don't consider myself an expert in food design, but I think that of course, for me, it's basic, as mentioned before, what we could consider the traditional design skills. That means prototyping, understanding a context, being able to communicate your outcomes and so on. And on this basis, I think that food design is really important in terms that it brings all the issues and all the concerns important in designing to a single point. So you have materials out there, you have some needs, you have a human being and a concern and a context, and then you have waste, the outcomes waste, and then you have here the whole circle. So food design is a key issue to have like this whole vision of what is happening concerned to our creativity and all the impact that surrounds any human activity. So on this basis, you can add as many fields of knowledge as necessary, but this is key for me.
I think we can also debate this all together from the introduction that Mariana gave about us. And I mean, you can actually, many of you knows us. I can see from, finally, I could see who was connected with us. I can see many of our students connected, or at least professionals who did have the opportunity to work with us, or we were connected before. So it's great to get here already the community. And that's really is the purpose, to get the community. I personally do have many students now that are my colleagues, which I think is a purpose when you teach to your students to become, someone to find their space in the market, then you also have a responsibility. And for many years, when my student asked me what I'm going to do after this master, what I'm going to do after this course, I did have the responsibility to answer. And I always said, you can also learn about design, but then you have to go and talk and work with the people in the field. There's no other way to say. So being prepared on using the methods, and I'm actually quoting Mariah now, she said, design is the tool and the method. And believe me, when you go to talk, and in the past 15 years, I've been talking with many people, not from the design field. Many times they told me, if there is a method, there is a manual. Give me the manual and I will be able to use the method. And I used to say, bring a designer and you will have more than the method. So this is exactly what we need to be. We need to be the supporter for people who don't know that they need our support yet. I would like to say for two reasons. And I think today we did have all of those coming out by the sectors we were discussing. First of all, the people don't know exactly that design is a method that can provide opportunities. So we need to tell the people what kind of opportunities we can provide. On the other side, this is a kind of new market. This is a kind of new job profile. And for us as professor, I quote Albert now, we need to understand how to create curricula that are matching perfectly with what are the needs outside, whatever they are, hospitality, restaurants, culinary, or an agriculture field, because we didn't mention today the production, but the production is very paramount on this kind of discussion. So when we think about food, we need to think about the entire food supply chain, from production, distribution, commercialization, and of course, the people are transversal to all of those fields, and post-consumption, for mentioning what kind of problem we have after the post-consumption in terms of recovering of waste. So I believe resources are many now. There are many masters, many courses. Our purpose is also to provide visibility to all of those pathways that you can take it. But on the other side, we need to use those curricula to also switch the mindset of people in the food sector and transversal sectors to understand the potentiality of this, the potentiality of design methods. I agree with maybe food design is restricted, but design method is really the key point. And really this will help us to reshape it. And here, I'm not the only one, Mariana, Ricardo, and many of those, I can see other people teaching. So bring your voice in and come to the discussion, because I believe you do have an idea to share as well. Because every time we go in class, we ask ourselves exactly why we're teaching this subject, why we're teaching those tools. We do have a purpose. Personally, I do have the purpose of changing the food system. So it's already part of the teaching, but I believe this is something that can come out also from our community.
Let me add something, because I never forget this word from our colleague, Pedro Alvarez, when we are talking about the construction of pillars around the fork organization. And one of the things that I always have in mind when we're talking about design in food, and this all of knowledge that is necessary to create a food designer, we're always talking about this idea of someone who has this knowledge and could advise. And at some point, Pedro point one of the questions that for me, it's the main point for me and for my students that are, we are in a gastronomy and hospitality school, that is the action. The food sector and the food industry and the future employers for these students need to see the students in action. And when we talk about in action is to provide examples that the projects that they are developing work and could be applied in the real market. So I will never forget this word from Pedro, and thank you so much for that, because I think it's the main idea in our course. For example, here in Portugal, it's this idea of action. Your project needs to make a contribute to the society, even if it will be just a small group of people, even if it will be only a local community, but they need to go in action to talk with these people. And of course, all these dimensions that you, Sonia, already talked about, from the production to the consumption, and understand all the food supply chain and beyond that, because nowadays these kind of concerns around sustainability, sustainability, food waste are the hot topics on food. And it is important for the students to understand that the tools that we are giving them in the school, from the field of design and the field of food, it's for them to create projects that take action in the society. And only in this way we can persuade and go inside the organizations of food and see, look, this is my work, I do it, and it works. So I think it's very important, this kind of action.
Thank you, Ricardo, for adding that. If you don't mind, I'm going to read other question we do have here. We have an assumption. We have to involve the big food and beverage companies to generate big change. So this is actually direct to the food industry sector, I believe. And I don't know if Clara wants to add something that she already mentioned many times. From the other side, let me be provocative that we have two ways to change the world, through vote and what we eat. So it is true that the big change comes from company, but a prepared demand, so good and aware consumer really make the change with their diet. So let's work systematically all together again to change the things. Then we have a question from Indonesia, which is dedicated on the fact that there is a different idea about food design, more artistic and more creative in a way of, she'd say food design is always related to the food industry and attraction, molecular gastronomy, culinary arts, and food arts. Do you have any opinion for people who have an high artistic and creative spirit to create food design? I think this is a question that bring art in. Honestly, I'm not sure we are able to answer without getting you in the conversation. So I also invite Repa Gastrotourism's Academy maybe to add more information if you want. You can also open your microphone and talk with us, because I think you are asking if this idea of food design can be geographically larger than what we describe it maybe through our European perspective. But I believe this is becoming, and we want to become, not a niche market, but instead a global market open to and accessible to more and more people, more than an artistic movement. But again, I wonder if my colleagues here do have something to add to this question or to answer this question. And again, if Repa Gastrotourism's Academy is here, we would be happy to discuss in person with you that. Then we have a question about nutritionists. Are the nutritionists considered in this collaboration? Yes, of course. Are they part of food? Yes, definitely they are. And definitely, if we really want to create sustainable diets, we just need also the purpose of getting this kind of health good for us and good for the planet more disseminated through the people, through companies as well, and of course through the design.
If I may, lately we are
Yes.
starting to eat not just for pleasure, but for nutrition. We need to take care of our health, and food is the best tool that we have to take care of our health. So nutrition is one of the key tools today. So I agree that it should be considered a key part of our mission.
Yeah, of course, and because consumers nowadays are more informed about the things they eat, and they want more information, and the nutritional part is, of course, one of the main points when we are eating. So I believe that all the areas related to food, not only nutrition, food security, food science, well, all the areas are very interesting to collaborate in this new recent field that has something to offer to the food sector. But let me just go back for the question that you are talking about from Gastrotourism Academy, because this is a discussion that already happens in the design field. In other terms, when we talk about design, because we have also in design this idea of authoring design, and here I believe it's the same, and there is room for both of the two actions in the field of food. In one way, this more related field to art and this kind of experimentation allows us to think more about the food in a way more deeply and conceptual, versus the other way where people are working in a more commercial way in projects that are more real and get ready to deliver to the consumer. So I don't know if there is a different separation in these two actions in the field, but I believe that they could coexist together, because this idea of more conceptual projects or more experimentation projects allows us to think more creatively in order to create more concrete projects.
I was on mute. Thank you so much for your integration. I think chats our guest was pointed out, and I think is giving us the opportunity to close this session by underlining that there is a big opportunity for food designer also to collaborate with startups and small visionaries. So definitely we mentioned big company, we mentioned big business, but we didn't actually touch so much about the startups and the small companies as well. Big companies are bound on their own boundaries and structures, and implementing design, there is any sense, is complicated because design is misunderstood and sometimes abstract and ecstatic. The goal is to integrate design as strategic tool. So as food designer, we need to feed, I'm reading what the chat shared with us, to feed change by empowering people and help them make the right food choice. As consumer, they can affect demand and influence industry in the market. This would prove more effective than changing world food system in the short term. So thank you, Charles, because this is giving us also the opportunity to underline the fact that what we want to do is to create impact. And for creating impact, we just need to think about long-term action. So this is definitely one of the purpose. And I believe this was also one of the goals that all of us as founder did have when we decided to create this no-profit organization. So this is giving also the opportunity to thanks you, Charles, for being here, but also let me thanks Albert Fuster, the academic director of Elisava, Clara Barta, from General Director of Food Tech Hub and Forward Fooding, Christina Bauerman, Chef, Fabio Paresecoli, Professor of Food Studies, NYU, Maria Vogelsang, Heating Designer, Rebecca De Sancho from the AEC, and everybody who was with us today. For us, it was an important day, an important moment. It's just the beginning of the adventure. We need you. So definitely this it's more, as we told you since the beginning, it was not an official opening, but instead it was just to open the door too. And we are very happy to have all of you on board if you want for different purposes and different, of course, opportunity we can create together. I leave those 5 minutes to my colleagues just to greet you and to close this session. And again, thanks to them, because if I'm here today is also for them that we're so patient and we're so strong on working on this week by week. And I'm very positive for the next future. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I will end up just saying thank you to all the people that volunteered to create the food communication and the food name. And I will have to give some names, which are Tabia Grau from Nom Nom, Daniel Palladini from Digital Palladini Digital Projects, Jordi Ferreras and Joan Cascante and David Caules and Eugenia Vilés, which were the Tactica team working for the creativity. Then also to Rebecca De Sancho that helped us with all the loyalty part, and also to Mar Miras that also helped us, and Sergi that also was there in some moments. So I hope I don't forget anyone, but thank you everyone, because this is a non-profit, a real non-profit thing in which everyone collaborates, and you are all welcome to do something in profit of the changing of the food system. So I give...
Un saludo a todo el mundo. Hay un hermano de Ford que no está, que está en México. Desde aquí un saludo y mando un abrazo enorme.
Shano, te queremos.
Y efectivamente, Mariana, hay un hito en la construcción de Ford que fue simplemente llegar a la conclusión de cómo queríamos llamar esta aventura. Ahí participó Xavier, si no más recuerdo su nombre, ¿verdad? Y desde aquí le mando un fuerte abrazo porque fue el hito inicial de esta aventura. Saber cómo nos queríamos simplemente llamar. Así que, y al equipo de Mariana, un fuerte abrazo.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience to give birth to a non-profit organization that is just above all of us. Is bigger than us, and because we have the mission to do something so big but so good for our society. So we are glad that this day has already has begun, and I'm really excited to be surrounded by this 14. Thank you, guys.
I'm very thankful to all of you to starting this journey with you, and for those who want to join in the future. So thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming, and thank you everyone.